That's right. It is orange and blue today. Talking about the Denver Broncos, the Jacksonville Jaguars coming up. London, Sunday morning. Are you ready for an early Sunday morning? Are you ready for the Denver Broncos to be playing at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time? I hope you are. I know I'm going to be ready, and we'll have our pregame show at 7:15 Mountain Time right here on all of our digital channels for the fan, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So join me and Rachel Vigil on Sunday morning at 7:15 a.m. Broncos kickoff at 7:30 a.m. and then we'll see what they can do against those pesky Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that you can't overlook and you can't look at as a gimme in this contest. Now, we'll go over the X's and O's today, and the fantastic Andrew Mason joins me. Mace, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about kind of how you approach Jacksonville. But it's Friday. Before we check in with the X's and O's, I just want to check in with you, man. How you feeling? How you feeling about this Broncos weekend?
You know what? This is one of those games where it's like I can see it going any way. Jacksonville's defense doesn't impress me. If you're the Broncos, this has to be a game where you start getting things right on offense. We're going to get into that, I'm sure, as the show goes on. If you can't get it right against these guys, you're sure as heck not going to get it right in Tennessee in 2 weeks against what they bring, especially in the front seven. But at the same time, the Jaguars defense views this as a get-right game for themselves, going up against a team that's dead last in the league in points per game. So, you know, what's going to give here? So far this season, on balance, the Jaguars – the Broncos defense has been worse as a defense or as an offense. Broncos offense has been worse as an offense than the Jaguars defense has been as a defense. So that certainly gives Jacksonville a little bit of an advantage. But there are going to be some opportunities for some plays here if the Broncos can capitalize.
Yeah, we're going to break down the X's and O's of this game. It's kind of startling to me. I haven't checked the quotes today, but I don't think anyone's asked about Jacksonville as of yesterday. As I was looking for quotes, like, what's Nathaniel Hackett think about Trevor Lawrence? Oh, nobody asked him. Mm-hmm. Thanks, because everyone's worried about his job. I guess the talk today is the Greg Penner conversation when he called it a week-to-week league and wouldn't commit to Nathaniel Hackett. So, you know, we get to peel back the curtain every once in a while. And Greg Penner, certainly, what else did he say? Like, this isn't the start we wanted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's speaking some truth there and, well, in a way, sending a message.
And look, here's the thing. With all respect to the Jaguars and with all respect to this game, this result, one way or the other, it's kind of secondary to a lot of other things, right? I mean, like, for example, when we're talking about trade possibilities here, if the Broncos make a trade decision based on Sunday, they're getting this wrong. It shouldn't come down to what happens in this game. You got to have a bigger picture perspective here. And as I said this morning or this afternoon with Stoke and Zach, thing is, what happens after this game, it's not just about the score, it's about how it happens. Like, if the Broncos lose this game 30-27, the offense looks good, they fall, I don't think you're seeing a lot of changes, right? Because it's like, okay, they lost, but they started getting back on track on offense. Defense, at that point, you're probably saying it's because you were pushed to the breaking point with injuries to both Gregory and Baron Browning, forced to play Nick Bonito quite a bit, and he didn't set the edge, and he struggles there. So there are going to be things that you can point to if you lose a high-scoring game. But if this loss looks like the others, if it's another 16-13 type of game, or heaven forbid, the Jaguars get into the 20s and the Broncos only get 6 or 7 and they get blown out.
Like when the Jaguars beat the Chargers. You know, if it's a game like that, look out.
Yes. Oh, yeah, look out. But this is going to be one of those things where it's not just the result that matters. It's just how it happens and kind of where things stand in terms of the overall process.
Yeah, the optics matter. The optics matter with this team because it hasn't looked good. And if it could show signs of looking good, then you could say, okay, this is on the right track. You could have proper patience. But as if it continues to look bad and embarrassingly so, then it sounds like Greg Penner, you know, he's tuned in. he's not tuned out to what's going on. Like, he knows how the fans feel, and I imagine he would be responsive if needed.
I imagine he would be as well, and he's not blind to how people are seeing it. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Uh, the Walton Penner family, they are very attuned to what the customer sees and how the customer acts. As I think, as the late Sam Walton said, and this is something that the family kind of lives by, all of us have a boss, and the boss is the customers. And if people stop walking in the store, we're all out of a job, right? So that's how that is at the core of how they view things, how they see things. So when Broncos fans are getting up en masse at the end of regulation against the Colts, it's an overtime game, but a fair amount of people have seen enough. And when they're getting up with just under 2 minutes to go, still all 3 timeouts and a chance to win against the Jets if they can get the ball back, which they did. And by the time the Broncos do get the ball back, the stadium is half empty. That is something that they notice as well, and that's something that where they say, "Ooh, this is this is a dissatisfied customer base," and they know, and they are very attuned and they're very sensitive to that.
Yeah, your loyalty can be tested, although there's a lot of loyal fans in London. There's a lot of Broncos fans in London. Jerome brings it up here in the chat room here on Facebook. Like, lots of Broncos fans in London. Finally saw a Jags fan. It was like a unicorn. Well, London is kind of the Jags home away from home. But yeah, I know plenty of like Facebook friends just scrolling, like, oh, they're in London, they're in London, they're in London. Yeah. There's a lot of Broncos fans that went ahead and made that trip, did a little vacation, a little, Broncos vacation overseas.
A lot of people decided this was their annual trip for the Broncos. A lot of fans like to make 1 or 2 trips a year. This was one of them. We've seen it be other venues over the years. Like, for example, I remember, I think it was 6 years ago in New Orleans, Broncos fans kind of took over down there in a way that I'd never seen at a Saints game. Never seen so many fans for the other team as that day. London, when it popped on the schedule, kind of became the moment. And also, don't forget, it's not just Broncos fans that are flying from over here, although they filled plenty of flights coming from Colorado to London.
Right.
You've got a lot of Broncos fans that are in Britain and beyond in Europe that are coming in for this game because they haven't seen their team in person over on the other side of the ocean in 12 years. The Jaguars, it's an annual thing for them. For the Jaguars, the advantage they have is in how routine this trip is. There's no, they're not doing the touristy thing, right? They flew in today overnight Thursday into Friday, did most of their preparations back in Florida. The only reason they fly in Friday is just to kind of get a little bit of a time zone change acclimation. But this is standard operating procedure. They're not going out there doing all this stuff. I think actually on our digital text chain, Cecil, James Merrillat pointed out that he saw Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler just getting on the tube going out for the evening.
Okay, there you go.
I don't know that the Jaguars are doing that on this trip because, again, it's just another trip for those guys. They do it every year. No big thing.
Yeah, not a big thing for the Jacksonville, London Jaguars, and a big deal for Denver. Come out with,
but the Broncos will have a crowd advantage. That is the thing.
Yes.
When you hear the crowd noise on Sunday, it's going to sound like a road game for Jacksonville. Of course, I could argue last year in Jacksonville that sounded like a road game for Jacksonville when the Broncos were down there in week 2 as well.
Right. So we'll see how it goes. The other kind of newsy portion of today, before we get to the X's and O's, is the Shannon Sharpe comments. Like, yeah, we know, Shannon, we get it. Like, it's coming from Shannon Sharpe, so it's very impactful. But when Shannon Sharpe basically says what we already know, and like, hey, Russ isn't really warming up to his teammates. Like, yeah, hey, maybe having an office and being kind of distant, like maybe that doesn't help you be one of the guys, and it's causing and building resentment within the building. When Shannon Sharpe says it's impactful, but Mace, it's also kind of old based on what we've been hearing a month ago, more than a month ago.
Yeah, it's just that he was in the building this past weekend.
Right.
That's the thing. That's if Shannon Sharpe had said this a few weeks ago, I don't think it would have been. It would have had the same impact. I think part of the reason it has an impact is he was just there for the alumni weekend. So, and of course he's got a platform as well. He's Shannon Sharp. But it's another log on the fire, right? We know there's discontent. We know there is a little bit of resentment. Look, if you're going to be different, if you're going to be in a situation where your people kind of have the run of the building, where you've got your own office, you've got to play well to justify that. Otherwise, players are going to be like, hey, this guy's got all this extra stuff, right? And what does he do? What is he doing to deserve that? And all I got's my little locker room cubby, and I can't get a place to myself in this building. I mean, it's for this to work, the quarterback has to be at a really high level. With great power and great privilege, I'm going to throw that in on the Uncle Ben quote, comes great responsibility. And so far, Russell Wilson's play has not lived up to that responsibility.
You don't need 6 parking spots. Come on, Russ. Come on. You don't need 6 parking spots.
I don't know. That Godzilla truck or whatever takes
That'll
up
take
at least
2,
a couple
right?
on its own.
That'll take 2. But
why does he need
6?
that? Why does he need that?
He wants it, I guess. You know what I mean?
Know.
Like it's fine. It's totally fine, I guess. But this is what we're talking about when they're not winning. Like they're winning, then nobody says anything. Like, oh, he's got his own office. It's just kind of interesting. The Broncos would choose to give him this stuff like now. Like not eventually or as he goes on, but like as soon as he steps in the building, you have free reign.
Which tells me it was part of the deal. Which tells me that in terms of making this work, in arranging this trade, that there were certain things that were agreed to, like having the staff, or like having the staff around, like having X amount of people get to be on trips and that sort of thing. So look, the Broncos in a lot of ways became Team Russ, right?
Mm-hmm.
The confirmation of that was when they signed him to the contract extension right after the preseason, before the start of the regular season. So they're Team Russ financially, but they're Team Russ in terms of how how his people kind of have the run of the building. When you have like the social media stuff, you've got Russ's social media people that often are working hand in hand with the Broncos social media people, right?
Right.
So I think it's just putting 2 and 2 together and how it all played out. I think this was part of the deal when they made it. The Broncos said, yeah, they'll do it. And the reason why they said that is they've been to the quarterback wilderness since Peyton Manning.
Right.
And that leads you to say, of course we will, because we've been going on the carousel of Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Brennan Allen, Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Rippon, who's still there,
Teddy Bridgewater,
Philip Lindsay, and Kendall Hinton for a day, and Teddy Bridgewater. Did I get everybody? I think I did.
I think you did. 11, right?
Yeah,
11. I was counting. Down.
So after that, you're like, okay, yeah, we'll do that to put a stop to this, right? So
yeah, okay.
But they haven't put a stop to the poor quarterback play, because you've got a quarterback who empirically, objectively, is in the bottom quarter. I know we're going to get to the Jaguars, but I have to be honest with you, Cecil, kind of the state of the Broncos is a little more interesting at this point than the Jaguars.
Yeah, it is a little bit more interesting because there might be change coming. There might be. Oh, Big Hurt said you forgot Brock.
No, I think I mentioned Osweiler.
Did you say Brock?
I thought I did. All right, I'll have to go replay.
By the way, I thought you were going to miss Brandon Allen, because everyone forgets about Brandon Allen.
Actually, funny thing, this offseason, one day asked Garrett Bowles to name him, and the one he missed was Bridgewater. And he felt so bad about missing Teddy, because he was the most recent guy, and he's like, yeah, Teddy's my dude and all that. He felt embarrassed that was the one name that escaped him, but he went through and he got all the rest, to his credit.
Yeah, it's been a lot. So it'd be a lot for anyone to remember or recall. Here, it's Orange and Blue Day. Cecil Lammey, Andrew Mason. Is that it for Broncos news?
Caden Stearns to IR just in the past hour or so.
Okay, so Caden Stearns to IR. That's unfortunate for that young man. Playing some good ball when he's healthy.
Yeah, but when healthy, it's kind of been the caveat on his entire career so far. Broncos legend Blake Bortles. He didn't actually start. Never actually got out there. He was in the room.
He only
as
convinced Drew Lock to take off their COVID badges.
I mean, that is literally
Uh,
Blake Bortles' contribution to the Broncos. Is that
yeah, getting Kendall
the
Hinton to play
yeah
quarterback.
yeah. I mean, Drew could have said no.
Drew should have said no. If
He
you're a
should have said no.
leader and some slappy journeyman grifter floats around and it's like, hey, just do this and like, let's rig the system. If you are a true leader, regardless of how you feel about the policy, right, and the distancing and everything that you're supposed to do, regardless of how you feel, if you're a real leader, you'd tell Blake Bortles to shove it.
You know, if Drew had made that decision, I don't think 2021 would have looked the way it did.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been a 50-50. I think it would have been someone as a backup just in case, but Drew would have gotten another look. But the fact that he didn't, he lost the trust of the coaches that week.
Yep. Lost the trust of the organization who was willing to give him time.
Yes.
And then someone else got your time, and that was Teddy Bridgewater. So
hey, look at that. Yeah, when did Cecil get so skinny? Well, I mean, we know all about it, right? You talk about it on the air all the time. It's the
I've been this size since January, since
SOTA.
late January. Yeah.
Let me see if I can do it. Let me finish.
There you go. See, we got to grab that drop. Get that drop. Wait a second. I'm the editor, so I get that drop anyway. Yeah. So it's awesome. It's nice. Thank you for noticing. It is orange and blue today. Now, I'm writing my game plan, Mace, and I wrote my 3 keys at denverfan.com. One of the first keys was no explosive plays because you have those guys that can get it done. So as I'm going through my game plan, I'm finding the plays that work for Jacksonville. Do you know that Trevor Lawrence, of his roughly 250 passing attempts this year, 40 of them have been on play action? That's it. Yeah. They don't use run action to set up any sort of downfield shots. It's mainly from the pocket. It's mainly like attacking and even attacking deep at times from the pocket and then trying to use short passes and turn them into long gains. So Doug Peterson has done a fine job kind of setting up his young quarterback to do what he does best. And that does not include play action.
And the interesting thing is that this is an offense with the personnel and the capability on the ground to actually get you with play action as well. That's another thing to consider here. And perhaps as I was watching them and seeing the lack of play action, Cecil, it kind of occurred to me that maybe they're just trying to kind of build up, get a core, and then kind of build out from there. Not have Trevor Lawrence doing everything, because you see a lot of RPO action, which is right there in his wheelhouse. But it feels like they're adding some elements to it. If they brought heavy play action in this week, that would be a pretty fine how do you do. I think it's something that we'll see more of over time. But this is an offense that is just trying to they're trying to go incremental. Instead of giving Trevor Lawrence the whole buffet, they're giving him one item at a time to kind of check off and improve on, and then go forward. I think they're going about this development in a very smart way.
Will they know when Nick Benito's on the field to run at him?
Yes, I think
that's unfortunate.
I think that's
there's enough film out there for teams to know that. Like, we know that because we're just around the team. But like, do you think there's enough film for people to be like, hey, he's not good against setting the edge?
Jacksonville's not short-staffed, and they're running things a lot more professionally than they did last year with Urban Meyer around. I would be shocked if they don't have somebody in their building, a quality control person, who went back, watched Nick Benito's college tape, and then watched his tape in the preseason as well, and said, look, this guy is not setting the edge. Everybody has got researchers as well, and so they can go back and find the quote that I think I may have even had on one of my Denver fan stories back in August, where Benito talks about how he's got get better against the run. He's going to have to add weight, and it's something that's going to take some time. So if he's out there, I think you may see some audibles there, because that's something that could be an advantage. Now the question is, how do you if you're the Broncos, what are the things that you can do to try to scheme and maybe help Nick Benito when they run in his direction?
Yeah, and we'll see what the Broncos do for that. I have trust in Aguirre Evero, so that he can figure out something, whatever that is, to help out with the run defense there. And the Caden Stearns thing is disappointing just because you love having that young safety as kind of a chess piece to move around the field. So we'll see what they do.
PJ Locke has been solid. We're going to find out a lot about PJ Locke probably over the next couple of months as well, because you have injuries that pop up at safety. Kareem Jackson's in year 13. He becomes the next man up, which probably means if K-Jack misses time, has an injury and misses some time, he's stepping in there as well. I mean, there's always an opportunity for somebody. The domino effect, we may see a little more of Delaren Turner-Yell at some point later on this season if Stearns is out for the long term. And the Broncos, I know, want to find out a little bit about him too.
I won't say it. You know who was picked right after him?
Yes.
The very next pick was Tariq Woolen.
Say it. I know.
So
I believe you mentioned that on Wednesday.
Delaren Turner-Yell better be a hell of a player.
Yeah, I believe you mentioned that on Wednesday when you were on at the start of your show.
Yeah. Is that when you texted me all the adjectives I could use? Like,
and as opposed to BS? Yes, I was trying to balderdash, folderol, rubbish.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the middle one? Was it because I know rubbish? I know balderdash. What's the middle one?
Folderol. Folderol. It's kind of an obscure. Folderol. Yes.
It's very obscure. What the hell is it?
It's
manure.
Bull or bull plop. Use I think it was
horse bucky.
Yeah. Homer Simpson used bull plop. I think that's one as well. So there are a lot of things you can do, Cecil. I mean, one of the things I remember when I years ago, this is going way back, and it's a baseball story. Sorry, Cecil. When Whitey Herzog was managing the Cardinals, he had a habit of dropping a lot of colorful metaphors into his post-game rants. And it was always interesting to read the reports the next day and what word they put in brackets to substitute for an F-bomb or substitute for saying BS and that kind of thing. And they went through the gamut of that. There was a certain grace to that.
Nice. Could Cincy be interested in Judy would chase out 4 to 6 weeks? Klong Ya, our guy, says that.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to make a deal like that based on kind of the short term, because Chase will be out for about a month. I don't know if that's enough for them to completely shake things up and make that deal, especially the rumblings coming out. And I know Ralph Vacchiano had the report out of New York that the Giants and Brian Daboll, who was at Alabama for a time while Jerry Jeudy was there, are very interested in Jerry Jeudy. And they
just traded Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs.
Right. It's one of those deals that you start seeing the pieces come together. It might make some sense for both parties. Now, there appears to have been more chatter on the internally and externally about KJ Hamler being traded, because there's a lot more interest in him because his value is lower. But Jerry Jeudy, that's a way to get probably a day 2 pick, I would imagine, back, and that could be a deal that is maybe more palatable to the Broncos. Frankly, if I had to trade one, I'd rather trade KJ or trade Jerry Jeudy and then get KJ Hamler more reps.
Right, and just see what you have in the young man, because it might be something. Might be something you like to keep around. So there you go. Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. Mace, Seinfeld or Simpsons? Deserted Island talk. Because I know you love Seinfeld and I know you love Simpsons.
Oh.
So if you could just have one, you're on a deserted island, you get every season available to you streaming on Coconut Plus or whatever. But you're Tom Hanks. I have created fire and I've got a streaming service with one show. Are you going Simpsons? Or are you going Seinfeld?
I'm going Simpsons because it's gone for a lot longer, even though the later seasons don't match up to the early seasons. It's not like it's a terrible show. It is just a show that the shows of the last, say, 10 to 15 years don't match up with the early season shows. So that's why Seinfeld aired for, I believe, 9 seasons, if I recall correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
And The Simpsons is on like year
29,
24, 30? Like 24, I believe, or 34. Yeah.
Yeah, it's around 30, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's season 34 this year. So I've got to go with the bigger sample size to have more to watch, because then you can say, okay, I'm just going to watch the whole thing, and it'll take longer to go through the whole thing. So
I liked when Homer was more nuanced as a character. As someone who's a writer with 8 APs, like Homer used to be like layered as a character, like very layered, and then they just made him a dumbass. And it's like, okay, that was funny, but it was funny when he was layered and you would like actually feel sympathy for him. Now there's Homer being dumb again. Like, I don't know.
A while ago, back in like the days of like of message boards and things like that, I believe when the transformation happened, they started referring to him as jerk ass Homer. That the show started to decline when it became more about just him being, just being loutish without having kind of any soul behind it. It used to be like Homer was well-meaning but would screw up, right?
Right.
And then it just was he just became a jerk over time. And that's hard to watch. Of course, you look at if you dive deeply into Seinfeld, there's a lot of sociopathic trends there as well. Right. Oh, there we go. Esther Pterodactyl says Homer is the owner of the Broncos roster. You know what? If we're looking back at the timeline, the Broncos in the first 2 seasons after that episode where Homer was given the Broncos by his former boss, Hank Scorpio, won 2 Super Bowls. Like they were partially through 96. So they lost that year to Jacksonville. But the first, so if there is, if we really want to kind of take that to its conclusion, Homer Simpson getting the Broncos is what led to the best of times in Broncos country, right?
Bring him back. Instead of having South Park in the stands, they should have Simpson characters. Although South Park is classic too.
What we probably didn't see was that at some point, probably Homer gambled the team away or something like that. Like, I mean, like, or just like he exchanged the team for like
duff.
1,000 lottery tickets or something like that. Something stupid.
1,000 kegs of duff, right?
Yeah,
I am Duff Man.
I think he would do it for the possibility of for the theoretical possibility of something bigger, like a bunch of lottery tickets, not truly understanding the odds of the lottery. Because this is a man who, when he bought 50 lottery tickets, they all had the same numbers. Because there's an episode where the lottery jackpot goes up, and the first number comes in, he doesn't have it, and he starts ripping up all the tickets, which told me, oh my goodness, he just put the same numbers on every ticket.
Yeah, it's orange and blue today. Come for the Broncos, stay for the Simpsons. That's right. You never know, man. Last 10 minutes, we just kind of go off the rails. I think it's just this season. It's for our sanity, Mace. Like, I have to do this because talking about the Broncos is depressing as hell. So let's have a little fun, right?
And if this doesn't turn around, I don't even want to think about what the offseason is going to be like if they don't pick until early in the 3rd round here. And that's another thing. Like, kind of selfishly, I kind of want them to make some trades here at the deadline to get some more draft capital. So we're going to have a lot more to talk about when we get to the offseason.
We're some chatty people. It's Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. Mason Cease on Orange and Blue today. Many thanks to you all for watching. As always, stay safe, be kind, and know that you are appreciated. I'm Cecil Lammey for Andrew Mason saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.